Hello and welcome to another adventurous episode of the Bible in 1 year with the preacher's husband. Today we're going through 1 Chronicles chapters 7 through 10. Now for tomorrow's reading we're going to do Psalm 102, 103, and 104. So those three psalms in order. So we're going to start off with 1 Chronicles. Now chapter 7 starts out with a list of Issachar's descendants. Now Issachar's tribe is mentioned primarily for the number of soldiers that it supplied and its meticulous genealogies. The first of several listings for Benjamin comes next, and the number of soldiers in this tribe was listed in this first section as well. This was the tribe to which Saul, the first king of the Hebrews, belonged. Then we talk about Naphtali's descendants, which was a very short list. Manasseh's descendants comes next, and what was interesting there is Zelophehad. It says that he only had daughters. Now, Zelophehad and his daughters made a huge, important contribution to the culture of Israel. We read about this in Numbers chapter 27, where his 5 daughters asked Moses to give them their inheritance in the land. Now Moses granted their request. This event set a precedent that women could actually inherit property, something that most surrounding cultures did not allow. So this was a big culture change for the Israelites when that happened. Next we talk about Ephraim's descendants, and then we get into Asher's descendants. Now Asher's tribe was located in the north on the coast, and it was of secondary importance, of course. However, a descendant of Asher, the prophetess Anna, praised God in the temple for the birth of Jesus. We'll see that later on. Benjamin's descendants comes next in chapter 8, and this is the second listing for the tribe of Benjamin, which provides a lot more detail than the first list did. Then we get to chapter 9, which is basically titled The Time After the Exile. At this point, the chronicler spotlights the post-exile community. And we're going to see a lot about this in Nehemiah chapter 11. A lot of these guys and what has happened through here. I found it very interesting in verse 10 here. It says the list of priests. And it starts out with Jedaiah and all these other priests, and it lists the priests and the genealogy of the priests. Now this is significant. This listing indicates the accurate continuation of genealogies, and it shows that the priests during the exile time must have maintained their knowledge so that they could take up their duties as priests again as soon as they returned to Judah. And then at the very end of verse 13, that it says they were capable men employed in the ministry of God's temple. Well, to be capable men, they had to keep up with that knowledge through the whole time, even when they were exiled. Then we get into a section of Saul's family. Now, this genealogy of Benjamin in these verses is exactly the same as in chapter 8, verses 29 through 38. But here, the genealogy sets up the story of Saul in chapter 10. And chapter 10 is basically the death of Saul and his sons. They just go straight to the death. Not every member of Saul's house died at the same time, though. Even though we see in verse 6, it says, so Saul and his 3 sons died. His whole house died together. But that's not exactly what happened. Not every single member of Saul's family died, but only his immediate family unit. In other words, him and his sons only, just his immediate family union. But the family unit in this sense is referring to Saul's dynasty, and that came to a screeching halt at that point when him and his sons all died. There would be no more of his descendants through the male lines. Then we get to verses 11 and 12 in chapter 10. The inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead owed their lives to Saul, that we read about in 1 Samuel chapter 11. Now that in this part of the story, they're risking their lives to protect Saul's body from further desecration after he is dead. and they cut off his head and hung his body parts around. They go and retrieve the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons, and they brought them to Jabesh. They buried their bones under the oak in Jabesh and fasted for 7 days. And that brings us to the end of today's reading. I hope this has touched you, and it was a good reading for you today. Remember tomorrow, Psalm 102, 103, and 104. We'll see you then for another episode of the Bible and When You're the Preacher's Husband. We'll see you.